last year, ironically, I made my favorite bullet journal setup ever, and it was supposed to be one of the biggest and busiest years for me, but obviously with everything going on, it was all cancelled down to the last detail, so I actually never ended up using my bullet journal, which is why I also didn't make any more videos about it. Pandemic aside, it was one of the toughest years for me, and on top of everything, not being able to see my family at all for almost over a year now has been incredibly hard. I am doing a lot better now, but I've realized that I have to make some changes in order to make my life easier during these times, including when it comes to my bullet journal. So you'll notice that apart from the stamps, I deliberately didn't want to decorate in any way. The reason is because I want my bullet journal to be strictly about planning, time management, and habit tracking, and if and when I have creative energy, I will focus it on my personal journal instead. I'm setting these very clear boundaries for my bullet journal this time for a couple of reasons. A lot of times I almost find that I have decision paralysis, where if I can't decide on a theme or how I want to decorate my bullet journal, or I simply just don't have the time, patience, or inspiration for it, then I just won't use it, and it's literally the exact opposite of what I want its purpose to be. I also sometimes get discouraged from using it because of this unrealistic expectation that every spread has to look perfect and intricate, especially because I filmed these videos and I post pictures about it. I feel like a lot of people in this community, and especially those who share their bullet journals online, myself included, have this pressure of always having to come up with something new and exciting cover pages and, new ideas and spreads and techniques. But I want to make the point that simple isn't necessarily boring, and you don't have to keep up with all the pictures you see on social media. You don't have to always do something new, and you don't always have to outdo yourself. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself what you want its purpose to be, whether it's a planning tool, a creative outlet, or both, or anything in between. There's definitely been a time in my life when being creative in my bullet journal was the actual motivation behind using it, but now I feel like it's doing the exact opposite. On the other hand, I don't think I could ever go back to regular planners. There's just something about the process of setting up my own spreads by hand that I absolutely love. So what works for me at this point is to just keep it very minimal. There's plenty going on in my life and in the world, so I could really do without being intimidated by my own bullet journal. So long story short, I just don't want creativity to be a condition for me to use it. Everyone will have a different experience though, and I feel like I've gone through the whole spectrum, but anything's okay as long as it works for you, and you can keep changing things up and trying new things until you find what that is. Since I'll be using these spreads throughout the whole year, I didn't mind spending a bit more time using the stamps. Of course, they are a bit more tedious to use, but honestly, they don't require much brain power, and they also save time from writing the calendars by hand, for example. On a daily basis though, I'm just going to use my pen and my own handwriting for making the titles and everything else. Contrary to what I used to believe a few years ago when I started bullet journaling, which is that I needed to have every type and color of markers and all the stationery and decorations, now the only tool that I use on a daily basis is my favorite pen. Like I said, I will use letter stamps here and there just because I find it relaxing, but other than that, I'm finally okay with just having a notebook and a pen, just like it was intended by the inventor of the bullet journal, Ryder Carroll. In the past year, I've also relied more on a combination of paper and digital. I realized I wasn't using some of the spreads that I was doing in my old bullet journals because it was much easier for me to track some things on my phone or computer. So that's why this setup is pretty basic and simple compared to all the different spreads that I used to do in my previous yearly setups. So here is the final flip through of my 2021 bullet journal setup. The spreads are pretty self-explanatory, which is why I didn't talk about them throughout this video, but I'll have pictures of all of these on my blog where you can also find some deeper explanations on how I use everything. You'll find that link in the description along with all the other supplies that I used in this video. This is usually a time when the motivation of a new year kind of wears off and you can lose focus. And if you feel the same, then I really encourage you to try to figure out a way to make the bullet journal work for you and not the other way around, because it can be a really powerful tool. I hope you enjoyed this video regardless of whether or not you've already set up yours, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye guys!